The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that made the city feel smaller, like it was holding its breath. Streetlights flickered in long orange lines across the slick pavement, reflecting the drizzle that had fallen earlier. Emily Shaw stepped out of the restaurant, pulling her beige coat tighter around her. It had been a late dinner with a client, one that dragged far too long. She was tired, heels clicking softly as she made her way toward the black car waiting at the curb. "Good evening, ma'am," her driver greeted her as he stepped out and opened the door. His name was Daniel. To her, he was just a polite, quiet chauffeur who worked for her company's security division. She didn't know much else, and she never asked. He had one of those calm, unreadable faces that gave nothing away. Emily slipped into the backseat, sighing in relief as the car door shut out the chill. "Let's go home, Daniel," she said. "Yes, ma'am," he replied, his voice low, steady, like the hum of the engine as they pulled away. But a few blocks down, Daniel noticed something in the mirror. Two men standing by a lamppost, one pretending to smoke, the other staring a little too long at their car. He kept his face neutral, eyes flicking once more to confirm. Then, as they turned the corner, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. A dark SUV followed, no headlights at first, just shadows gliding along the road. Emily didn't notice. She was scrolling through her phone, replying to messages. "Traffic looks lighter tonight," she said casually. Daniel gave a polite nod but didn't respond. He slowed slightly at the next intersection, watching the SUV do the same. His training kicked in the way it always did. Small details, patterns, timing. His jaw tightened. They weren't random drunks or joyriders. Their movements were too coordinated. He adjusted the rearview mirror slightly, catching the outline of three figures inside the SUV. All men, all watching. "Everything okay?" Emily finally asked, noticing his silence. "Yes, ma'am," he said, forcing a small smile. "Just taking a different route home, construction ahead." But he wasn't avoiding construction, he was testing them. He made two quick turns through narrow side streets, the kind most drivers avoided at night. The SUV followed both times. No hesitation. That confirmed it. Inside the car, Emily's phone buzzed with another message. "Daniel, can you turn up the heat? It's freezing." He nodded again, his tone calm but eyes alert. "Of course, ma'am." He adjusted the dial but kept one hand close to the hidden compartment under the dashboard, a compartment no ordinary driver would ever have access to. The SUV behind them sped up, closing the distance. Daniel glanced once more at the mirror. The driver in the other car wore a black cap, jaw clenched, eyes darting left and right. Thugs, but not smart ones. He tapped the Bluetooth earpiece in his right ear, a motion so subtle Emily didn't even notice. "This is Delta 7, he said quietly, his voice low enough that it blended with the hum of the tires. "Possible tail, 3 males, silver SUV, moving toward 5th and Alder." Static crackled, then a calm voice replied, "Copy that, Delta 7. Stay on them. Do not engage unless necessary." Emily leaned forward. "Did you say something?" "Just talking to dispatch, ma'am," Daniel replied smoothly. "Security check-in." She nodded, half distracted, not realizing that the man driving her home wasn't just a driver. He was a field operative with 10 years in covert operations, the kind who dismantled armed cells, neutralized threats, and vanished before dawn. The kind of man whose past was classified in 4 countries. The SUV behind them accelerated again. Daniel turned down another street, a dead end if you didn't know the area. The lights grew closer, too close now. Emily looked up, sensing tension. "Daniel, what's going on?" He didn't answer. His hand slipped toward the compartment, pressing a code into a small, hidden keypad. The sound of metal clicked softly as the panel opened. Inside, a Glock 19 rested against a small device with blinking blue lights. He kept his eyes on the mirror and said evenly, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stay calm. Do not panic." The SUV behind them revved its engine, headlights flaring bright white. Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Who are they?" she whispered. Daniel's voice dropped lower, colder. "The kind of men who just made the biggest mistake of their lives." The car behind them began to speed up, and Daniel tightened his grip on the wheel. The street ahead was narrow, half-lit by broken lamps and littered with trash bins. The kind of road no sane person would choose after midnight. Emily's hands gripped her purse tightly, her heartbeat hammering against her ribs. The tension inside the car felt thick, suffocating. Behind them, the SUV's engine roared. Tires screeched as it lunged forward, closing the gap in seconds. Daniel's eyes flicked between the mirror and the road, calculating, calm, cold. His voice, when he finally spoke, carried no hint of panic. "Ma'am, slide down a bit in your seat. Keep your head low." "Daniel, what is going on? Are we being followed?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Yes," he said simply, eyes fixed ahead. "But don't worry, I've handled worse." Before she could ask another question, the SUV rammed them from behind. The jolt threw Emily forward, her seatbelt catching her sharply. Glass rattled. Daniel barely flinched. The driver behind them laughed. She could almost hear it through the roar of the engines. Another impact came, harder this time. "Hold on," Daniel muttered. He downshifted suddenly, letting the SUV surge ahead slightly before jerking the wheel to the left. The car swung into a side alley so tight that Emily gasped, certain they would crash. But Daniel knew exactly how far the car could bend, how close he could get to the wall without scraping paint. The alley spat them out onto a different street. He floored the gas, merging onto a one-way road going the wrong direction. Horns blared as headlights rushed toward them, a blur of angry faces and flashing lights. "Are you insane?" Emily shouted. Daniel's lips pressed into a thin line. "Just trust me." Behind them, the SUV followed recklessly, its heavy frame smashing through a row of garbage cans as it turned the same corner. It was fast, too fast. Daniel tapped his earpiece again. Delta 7 requesting immediate satellite assist, 2 blocks west of Harbor Line. They're not giving up. "Copy that," the voice on the other end said. "You have clearance to engage if civilian risk is minimal." Emily's eyes widened. "Engage? What do you mean engage? Daniel, what are you talking about?" "Seatbelt, ma'am," he said. "Tighten it." He made a sharp turn into an empty parking lot, headlights cutting through the mist. The SUV followed seconds later. Its doors opened before it even stopped moving, 3 men jumping out. Faces hidden under dark hoods. One held a crowbar, another something that glinted like a knife. Emily froze, whispering, "Oh my God." Daniel moved with precision. No wasted motion. He reached into the dashboard compartment, pulled out the Glock, and racked it once. The click echoed sharply in the quiet lot. "Stay in the car and keep your head down," he said calmly. He stepped out, closing the door gently, almost politely, before turning toward the men. The driver of the SUV smirked and started walking forward. "Nice car you got there, pal," the man said. His accent was rough, his tone cocky. "Why don't you hand over the lady and whatever's in that bag?" Daniel said nothing. He kept walking slowly toward them, his weapon lowered, unreadable. "Hey," the man shouted, pointing the crowbar. "Did you hear me?" Daniel stopped about 10 feet away. His voice was calm, but it carried that quiet authority that made the thugs hesitate without understanding why. "You picked the wrong woman to follow." The man laughed. "Yeah, and who's gonna stop us, you?" Daniel's answer came in a flash. He moved faster than they could blink. One shot cracked the air, not a kill shot, but deliberate. The bullet shattered the metal side mirror of their SUV, sending shards flying. The noise echoed off the concrete walls. The men froze. Daniel's voice lowered, steady as steel. "Last chance, walk away." The leader's arrogance faltered for just a second. Then he growled, raising his weapon again. "Get him." Everything that followed happened too fast for Emily to comprehend. Daniel sidestepped as one thug charged with the crowbar, a sharp, efficient motion, and struck the man's wrist with the butt of his gun. The weapon clattered to the ground, followed by a scream. Another man lunged with the knife. Daniel kicked him square in the chest, sending him sprawling back against the hood of their SUV. The knife slid across the ground, spinning to a stop by Emily's door. She ducked lower, trembling. The leader pulled out a pistol, small, shaky hands gripping it wrong. But before he could aim, Daniel shot once. The bullet hit the man's shoulder, spinning him to the ground with a cry. Silence fell again, broken only by the faint ringing in Emily's ears. Daniel walked forward, kicking the pistol away. He leaned down, his expression calm and unreadable. "Who sent you?" The wounded man spat blood, muttering something inaudible. Daniel pressed the barrel of his gun lightly against the man's neck. "You have 3 seconds." "Man named Keller," the thug groaned. He said she had something he wanted." Daniel frowned. The name meant something, Keller. He stood, holstered his weapon, and glanced back toward Emily's car. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. He walked back slowly, wiping his hand on a cloth before opening her door. "Are you hurt, ma'am?" "No," she whispered, "but who are you really?" He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Your driver," he said simply. But as he started the engine again, his mind raced. The name Keller wasn't just familiar, it was dangerous. It belonged to a man Daniel thought was long dead. And if Keller was after Emily, the rain had started again, soft at first, a mist that blurred the glow of the streetlights as Daniel drove through the sleeping city. The windshield wipers moved in slow rhythm, sweeping away the droplets while Emily sat stiffly in the back seat, silent, lost in thought. She kept replaying what had just happened in her mind, the gunshots, the blood, the way Daniel moved like he had done it 100 times before, because he had. There was nothing ordinary about him, and the man she thought was just a polite driver had just dismantled 3 attackers without even breaking a sweat. Finally, she found her voice. "You knew them," she said quietly. "You knew that name, Keller." Daniel didn't answer right away. He took a slow breath, his hand steady on the wheel. "I knew of him," he said. "Who is he?" He hesitated. He wasn't supposed to talk about it. His life had rules, silence, distance, control. But tonight, the lines were already blurred. "Keller was part of a black operations group," Daniel said finally, his voice low. "Years ago, we worked on covert extractions overseas off the record. The kind of missions no one ever admits happened. Keller went rogue, sold intel to foreign buyers. The agency listed him as neutralized, but apparently—" "He's not," Emily whispered. "No," Daniel said, eyes narrowing. "He's very much alive." They drove in silence for a while, the tension stretching thin. Emily glanced out the window at the dark streets sliding past. "Why me, though? I'm just a finance consultant. I don't even know anyone named Keller." Daniel glanced at her in the mirror, studying her expression. "What do you work on specifically?" "International funding transfers," she said. "Mostly defense contracts, logistics, government projects. I handle accounts for a few agencies, but it's just paperwork." Daniel's eyes hardened. "Not paperwork to Keller. He's been trying to rebuild his network. He probably thinks you have access to something, maybe a client database or routing codes." Her stomach twisted. "So I was being watched." "For weeks, probably," Daniel said. "Those men tonight were small-time muscle. Keller's way of probing defenses before making his real move." Emily felt sick. "This is insane. Why didn't anyone tell me? Shouldn't the CIA or whoever you work for protect people like me?" Daniel's knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. "They don't know yet. You were just a name on a list until tonight." They turned onto a long bridge, the water below reflecting the city lights. Daniel's voice dropped lower, thoughtful. "Once we get you to a safe location, I'll contact my handler. But if Keller's active again, we're not dealing with street thugs. We're dealing with ghosts, people who know how to disappear, how to erase trails. Emily pressed her palms together, trying to keep them from shaking. And what if Keller finds me again? Daniel glanced at her through the mirror, his gaze steady, unflinching. Then he'll have to go through me. Something in the way he said it sent a chill down her spine. Not because it scared her, but because she believed him. Minutes later, Daniel turned off the main road and drove toward an industrial area on the city's edge. Old warehouses stood in rows, their windows black and broken. He stopped outside one of them, stepping out to open a heavy metal gate with a security pad hidden behind a rusted panel. Inside, lights flickered on automatically, revealing a sleek, high-tech interior, nothing like the decaying exterior. Emily followed hesitantly, eyes wide. "What is this place?" "Safe house," Daniel said. "Unofficial, off-grid. Only 3 people know it exists." He locked the door behind them and checked the perimeter screens. Every camera angle flashed on the monitors, covering the outside streets. He set his gun on the counter and began running a trace on Keller's name through an encrypted system. Emily sat on a steel chair, watching him work. His movements were practiced, efficient, like a man who'd done this 1,000 times before. "You've done this your whole life, haven't you?" she asked softly. He paused, hands hovering over the keyboard. "Too long," he admitted. The computer beeped. A file popped up: Keller, Raymond J. Status, deceased. Daniel frowned. "Deceased my ass." He dug deeper, bypassing multiple firewalls until a hidden layer of data appeared: encrypted communications, recent ones, using a ghost satellite network. The sender's tagline made his stomach drop. KLR-04. Keller's code. And one message stood out, sent less than 2 hours ago. It read, "Primary target still active. Driver confirmed. Proceed with Phase 2. Daniel's pulse quickened. "Damn it." Emily's voice trembled. "What does that mean?" He turned to her. "It means Keller already knows I'm with you. Phase 2 isn't about grabbing you anymore. It's about eliminating both of us." As if on cue, the security alarm beeped softly, motion detected at the outer gate. Daniel drew his weapon instantly, checking the monitor. 2 figures. No headlights, no noise, moving slowly, deliberately. Emily stood, fear flashing across her face. "They found us." Daniel stepped closer to the screen, his expression grim. "Not just found us, they came ready." He turned to her, eyes sharp and voice cold as steel. "Stay behind me. Don't move unless I say so." Outside, through the rain and the faint fog, shadows crept closer to the gate, silent, steady, and far too confident. This wasn't over, it was only beginning. The rain came harder now, pounding against the metal roof of the warehouse. The sound was deafening, a steady roar that swallowed every other noise. But Daniel's ears caught what others would have missed. Soft footsteps moving outside the gate, the scrape of boots against gravel, the faint click of a rifle being loaded. He moved fast. The lights inside the safe house went off with a single switch, plunging the room into darkness. Only the blue glow of the monitors remained, faint and ghostly. Emily's breath quickened. "Daniel," she whispered, "what do we do?" He handed her a small flashlight and whispered, "Stay low, stay behind the desk. Don't move until I tell you." Her hands trembled as she crouched down, clutching the light like a lifeline. Daniel moved to the window, peering through the rain-streaked glass. 2 men were by the gate, cutting the lock. A third stood behind them, scanning the street with a suppressed rifle. These weren't low-level thugs, their formation was military. Clean, precise. Keller's men. Daniel exhaled slowly. This wasn't just a hit, it was an execution squad. The first explosion came from the side wall, a small blast that ripped open part of the metal siding. Smoke and dust filled the air as the men entered, guns raised. Daniel rolled behind a steel pillar, firing 2 quick shots. One man went down instantly. Another ducked behind a crate, returning fire. Bullets sparked against the metal walls, echoing like thunder. Emily screamed and covered her ears, crouching lower. Daniel's voice was calm, steady. "Stay down, Emily." He moved like a ghost, fast, silent, precise. He shot the second man in the leg, dropping him before kicking the weapon away. The third one moved toward the office door, trying to flank him. Daniel waited until the man's shadow crossed the doorway, then grabbed him by the collar, slamming him hard into the wall. The man grunted, struggling. Daniel pressed the gun to his chest. "Where's Keller?" The man coughed, blood trickling from his mouth. "Already here," he whispered. A slow clap echoed through the warehouse. Daniel turned toward the sound. A tall man stepped out from the shadows, dressed in black, face half hidden under the brim of a cap. He looked older, rougher, but Daniel recognized him instantly. "Keller." "You always were predictable, Delta 7, Keller said, smirking. "Hide the girl, lock down the perimeter, take the high ground. You never change." Daniel kept his weapon raised. "You should have stayed dead." "Dead men don't get even," Keller replied coldly. "You took everything from me, remember? The op in Prague, the files, the burn notice. I lost my team, my name, my life. And now I'll take yours." Emily stood slowly, peeking from behind the desk. "Why me?" she demanded. "What do you even want from me?" Keller glanced at her with amusement. "Oh, sweetheart, you're not the target, you're just the key." Daniel frowned. "Key to what?" Keller smiled darkly. "Her company handles encrypted fund transfers for covert branches of defense. One of those branches has something I need, a black account full of ghost money, all hidden under her clearance ID." Emily shook her head. "That's impossible. I don't have access to anything classified." "Not yet," Keller said, "but your company's internal system refreshes every 72 hours. Tonight, at midnight, your credentials will sync with the government's off-site server. Then you'll have full visibility. I was going to take you alive, make you log in for me, but your little driver changed the plan." Daniel's voice was cold. "You're not leaving here with her." Keller's smile faded. "You think you can stop me? You always did underestimate me." He raised his gun. The next few seconds exploded into chaos. Daniel dove sideways as the first bullet ripped through the air. Keller's shot hit a computer monitor, sending sparks flying. Daniel returned fire, forcing Keller behind cover. The remaining thug tried to flank Daniel again, but Emily, trembling and desperate, grabbed the small pistol Daniel had dropped earlier. She fired. The shot hit the thug's shoulder. He screamed, falling to the ground. Emily stared at the gun in her hands, shaking uncontrollably. Daniel took advantage of the distraction, moving forward fast. He caught Keller as he reloaded, slamming him against a support beam. The two men struggled, fists, elbows, the dull thud of metal against skin. Years of old betrayal poured into every strike. "You betrayed your own team," Daniel snarled. Keller spat blood. "You think the agency didn't betray you too?" Daniel hesitated just for a second. That was all Keller needed. He shoved Daniel back, pulling a knife from his belt. The blade glinted in the dim light. But Daniel moved quicker. He ducked under the swing, twisted Keller's arm, and drove his knee hard into Keller's ribs. The knife fell, clattering across the floor. They locked eyes one last time, soldier to soldier. "This ends tonight," Daniel said quietly. He pulled the trigger. Keller collapsed, his eyes wide with disbelief as he slid to the ground. Rain poured through the damaged roof above, washing away the blood that spread slowly across the floor. Silence returned. Daniel stood over him, breathing hard, for a long moment. He didn't move. Then he holstered his weapon and turned to Emily, who was still standing by the desk, pale but alive. "It's over," he said softly. She nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my life." He shook his head. "No, you saved your own." Sirens echoed faintly in the distance, backup, finally on its way. Emily looked at him, her voice trembling. What happens now? Daniel glanced once more at Keller's still body. Now, he said, you forget this ever happened, and I disappear again. She stepped closer, her voice breaking. Daniel. But he was already walking toward the open gate, rain soaking through his jacket, face expressionless. He paused only once, turning back for a final look. You were never supposed to be part of this, Emily, he said. I'm sorry you had to be. And then he was gone, swallowed by the night, like a shadow returning to the darkness it came from. Emily stood there, shivering, watching the rain wash away the traces of the man who had saved her. She didn't even know his last name. But she would never forget him, the quiet driver who turned out to be a ghost, a protector, and maybe, just maybe, the only honest man left in a world full of lies.